and my other co-chair, Representative Krista Griffith. Welcome everyone today. I hope everyone's keeping warm. It's a little bit of fall out there. Welcome to everyone, all the participants of the working group, and as well as everyone who is following along. We will proceed with our agenda, which was distributed. I would just like to say I appreciate everyone's patience as we sort of spread this out an extra, the timing of the meetings a little bit, just to give ourselves some time to organize our working groups. As you recall, we decided to dive into creating some working groups in order to make sure we can more fully examine some of the key areas of aging in place. So that took a little bit of time just to get organized, especially in our virtual environment. So we are now getting ready to proceed with that. So today, what the goal is to kind of, let's have a little bit of a more open discussion, given some of the presentations that we've had over the from the first two meetings. I think we've got a pretty good sense of what some of the state trends and some of the national trends are. We're also going to have here some caregivers and those who are aging in place. So we want to make sure we are hearing from those folks directly affected by the work we're looking to do, get their perspectives, get their ideas, so we can make sure that we are developing and talking about things that will be practical and things that will have a real impact on those aging in place and their caregivers. And then again, we're going to start touching on some of the reports from the subgroups, just to again get a sense of direction, get a sense of some of the topics that the direction they're taking on some of the topics we've identified, and the deep dive that they're going to take, ending with a public comment. I unfortunately am not going to be able to stay for the entire meeting. I have an appointment that I could not reschedule, so I will probably be logging off at about 1:40, 1:45. Representative Griffith will then take over as chair of the meeting. So with that, I am going to just kind of go around the screen here. We do have some staff from that is also on board that will be here, but also I want to go around for those. I think we as the working group kind of know who everyone is and where they're coming from and what organizations. But again, if there's people who are watching for the first time, I think it's just helpful to know who everyone is and what organizations and perspectives they're bringing. So I'm Spiros Manzavinos. I'm the state senator from the 7th district, co-chair of the committee. So Representative Griffith.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Krista Griffith, and I am state representative for the 12th district, which is in northern Newcastle County.
Senator Bonini.
It's Colin Bonini, and I'm a state senator in the 16th district in Lower Kent County. Thanks very much.
Yep. Representative Ruth Briggs King.
Good afternoon, Ruth Briggs King from the 37th district, representing Georgia Longneck and in between with our graying population.
Awesome. Melissa.
Good afternoon, Melissa Smith, Division Director of the Division of Services for Aging and Adults with Physical Disabilities.
Wonderful. Jean.
Sorry, I wasn't expecting myself so quick. Jean Mullen, I'm the Executive Director for the Delaware Association for Home and Community Care. Thanks.
Yep. Kathleen.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Purcell. I'm the Executive Director of Wilmington Senior Center, and I have two volunteers with me, Marie Dash and Dolores Spencer.
Wonderful. Welcome. Chris.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Fraser. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Westside Family Healthcare and also the Vice Chair of the Board at Christiana Care Home Health. Thank you.
Wendell.
I'm sorry, I have to put my spectacles on to see where. Hi, Wendell Alford, representing the state of Delaware for AARP, and pleased to be here again. Thank you.
Maggie.
Hi, everybody. Maggie Webb. I'm the Vice President of Programs over our Senior Services and Long-Term Services and Supports at Easter Seals.
Lisa. Lisa. We have Lisa Zimmerman too. So, okay. Well, why don't we I think that's everybody, right? And then many of you know William, you've seen his emails. We also have other states, Senate staffers, Emmy Diaz, Taylor Hawk, and Caitlin Del Calo, who are on the call as well. There's Lisa. Lisa, would you like to introduce yourself? See that your mic is off or on. Okay. Well, let's move on to the meeting minutes. You all should have received a copy of the minutes from our September 24th. Was that the really last minute? I thought, okay. From September 24th.
Senator,
yeah.
October 8th.
October 8th, okay. So from October 8th, I thought so. I was like looking at that there. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from October 8th?
Move to accept.
I got a motion to accept from Senator Bonini. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, wonderful.
Would you, Senator, please note my recusal? I was not at that meeting, so I can't vote on those minutes.
No worries.
I think, Representative, you still may vote on minutes even if you weren't present at a meeting, just in case that ever comes up again. I think procedurally that you are able to do that as a voting member, even if you didn't attend.
Okay, wonderful. So I kind of want to take about about 20 minutes or so. We had a lot of information presented in the first two meetings, beginning with the demographic presentation from Ed Ratledge to advancing states and Delaware's Division of Aging, to the presentation from about different options that are available for housing. And I think at this point in time would like to have some discussion and some feedback about kind of where we are as we embark on, again, as the subgroups are about to embark on some deep dives and start to get some perspectives from folks so that we can start to share. And then again, we will at that point afterwards kind of move into presentation from caregivers and individuals to give their perspective. So at this point, William, if you could, I think you are, the way having the slides up there, there we go, thank you. I just want to make sure I'm able to see everyone. Perfect. I'd like to just open it up a little bit because, we've had a lot of presentations, a lot of good conversation with presenters, but I'd like to maybe see if we can start to, talk amongst ourselves a little bit and start to get some input from the members of the working group. And I guess I will start, and maybe just to kind of kick it off, in that I think that there's a lot of opportunities here that, again, getting the perspective from advancing states, getting the perspective from of the different housing. I think there's some opportunities for us to do some really good work to start to, enhance and build on what we have here in the state. And I think, again, the Division of Aging has been doing a great job. I just want to think we just need to start to, make sure we're excuse me. Excuse me. Just like, I'm going to turn it over to, excuse me, Representative Griffith, if you want to kind of, I have to excuse myself for a second.
Yeah, no. Take a minute, Senator, and get a glass of water. That's the frustrating when that happens.
Or something to drink for it, or still drinking my coffee from
I'm just
this
gonna take a minute.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, it's good. Good to take
So
that.
again, I just like to open it up a little bit and let's have some dialogue on this. And again, if anybody wants to kick off and offer some of their perspectives and thoughts to this point, just raise your hand and let's kind of begin the conversation. Yes, Chris.
Thanks, Senator. I really appreciated the presentation from our last meeting and helping us, Kathleen and I, as we're going to co-chair and move forward with our subcommittee. I think it'll be interesting for us to help define, as we look forward to bring recommendations, the different populations that we're looking and what we might be looking to create as we think about those who may own their homes, may be looking to, age in place in that regard, or others who do not, and how we want to approach both of that. I'm curious to see your direction on that from both you, Senator and Representative, your thoughts on that.
No, absolutely. And I think, one of the key things and why it's so important that we have Representative Ruth Briggs King and Senator Bonini, is just making, as we look at these different populations, again, we need to look at this, from a statewide perspective. I think, it's the needs. There are a lot of common needs throughout the state, but I think there are going to be some nuances that we need to be, recognize, again, from different populations, from throughout the state, and different phases of aging in place. So absolutely, I think I am looking forward to hearing, again, as the subgroups start to dive in and provide some of the deep dive where we're going to go with this. So.
Yeah, and I agree, because taking into account, for instance, the aging population that will be occurring and is increasing in Sussex is probably a little bit different than Kent or Newcastle, in that we've had such high in-migration, particularly of those at retirement age. And so they're separated in many parts from that community, either raised their children or had other connections. So, they're learning and assimilating to a different community, but also at the same time losing part of that support base that they might have had with family or friends in their former residence of many years. And so those issues that regarding transportation and certain other things become even more, I think, amplified for that group from losing, some of that core support system when relocating.
Jean.
I was going to say that, beginning with, everything that you laid out for us, those presentations, they were immensely helpful. And, before I go on, I just wanted to say all of them were very good, but Ed Ratledge's presentation was so eye-opening and confirming of what we've all known for a long time, but maybe not in the detail, and precision that he was able to show us. So, it was so good that I asked Ed to present it to the Home Care Association, and we're getting contact hours for the nurses for that. But I think the more people that see that, the more people will understand what they are going through is not, personal. It may actually help them, even our employees, right, to understand the pressure that everyone's under, and also that perhaps their employer, if you will, is not, is not maybe the ogre that they may perceive, because this is the big picture. The other part that was so helpful about all the presentations was that you kind of set the stage for, let's really get creative. We don't have to work within, our typical and normal parameters. We really do need to think about things that maybe haven't been done before, or that are just being tried somewhere else. So I feel pretty excited about that. And I think, it's all good. It sounds perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Melissa.
To follow up on a couple of comments that were just made, the demography talk really, I think, solidified the thought that our approach and our recommendations really need to be as diverse as our aging population, and that there's not going to be a heterogeneous solution here, that we have, the Sussex population is going to be just very different demographically than other areas of the state. And so I think maybe just to pick up on Jean's point, there's a lot of room for innovation there, but I also, it just really brought up the need to be diverse in our response as well, and our recommendations for those, those strategies that we come up with for aging in place in Delaware.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too, if I'm just going to jump in here, is, a lot of times people who I've spoken to with about this topic that we're working on, I think everybody recognizes that it's not an issue that's coming, it's an issue that's here. So I think that is also over the last couple of weeks been very, I think it's a key thing we got to remember. We should not be talking about an issue or something that is coming. It's now. And I think that adds some urgency, and also, to the demographics that we've seen, and then also I think to the policies and being able to be creative and look at things specifically to different parts of the state as well. So, Maggie?
Thank you, Senator. I think also sort of echoing some of the comments, but I was not present at the first committee meeting, so I'm kind of bummed that I missed those presentations. But in the last group, they were fabulous. And I think one of the key areas that I pulled from those presentations and those individuals were a lot of components from other states, how other organizations are working through things, how other states are managing. And I think, for our benefit, we know that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So we can get creative, but we can also utilize other resources or other methods that we have been seen as being beneficial in other states to be able to secure, the safety and, security of this population as they're continuing to age in place. So I think also utilizing some of those external connections and other providers and other state members for other organizations, I think would also help.
Kathleen, did you have your hand up before? And I apologize if I saw you, if I missed you there.
It was Marie Dash.
Oh, okay.
They were gonna talk, I don't know when you're gonna get to this section.
That's gonna be the next item on the agenda.
Oh, okay, great, thanks.
Okay, no, just, I just wanted to make sure. Okay. Gina, did you have your hand back up? I'm sorry. No?
No, I put it back down. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Any other thoughts? Wendell, do you have any thoughts to this point? And you're on mute.
I thank you very much again. I have conducted some interviews just recently, and there seems to be a common theme. One, which is no surprise to anyone here, is that as we age in place, or the community ages in place, is transportation or the lack of. And the second thing, and the theme that I heard the loudest, was getting people, not just a support group, but getting the people who are aging somehow or another with some education or training or whatever it's going to take, but to actually get those people to get out of their home, to become involved in senior centers or with their neighbors or their friends. That I've spoken, pardon?
No.
I've spoken this week to some people who have basically said that's their number one fear, and they all have loved ones who they just don't know how to. So I think there's going to have to be an education process in this somewhere as we go forward to help the good caregivers, or the younger caregivers, if you will, and not just caregivers, but as we talk about our parents, our families, whomever, is that there's got to be an educational process of tools for our toolbox, and no cliche meant there, but that we end up with something that's going to educate the public and on our subjects. And I feel this is very important, but more importantly, I think that what I've learned up through this period is the statistics that were presented by Ed were just overwhelming. I had no idea that we are where we are. I've received a Johns Hopkins presentation or publication this week, and that 55% of our doctors will be retired in the United States. Will be retired in the next 15 or 20 years, exactly. And then the medical profession has its own issues, because they too are wearing out, because they're at an age where they're going to be caring for their parents and not being able to dedicate their time to their medicine. So I think this is all just, as you said, Senator, I think we're here. We've got to do something now. Thank you.
Thank you. Jean, your hand's back up.
Yes, it is. One thing I wanted to ask a question that, the Disabilities Council has created a group that's very similar to this.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure, do we have anybody from Disabilities Council on this group? These groups all popped up at once. This Aging in Place, there's the nursing, the Delaware Nurses Association. It's doing a nurse workforce collaborative, and that nurse workforce includes home health aides and CNAs, that sort of thing. And then the Disabilities Council just recently opened up something almost identical to what we're doing. So I didn't know what the impetus was that got all these going at the same time. It's excellent, but I'm wondering if we're, you know, we've got a lot of knowledge and a lot of good minds in each of those groups, and
Yeah.
how could we converge this a little bit?
I did speak with the Disabilities Council. I mean, I think, you know, and so when this was formed, to make sure that, you know, because certainly having individuals who are with disabilities who are aging in place, that's definitely something we want to include in this. I think we can definitely reach out to them and make sure that we're working in tandem. What was the other organization you said that was working on workforce? I'm sorry, nurses?
It's the Delaware Nurses Association, and they created a nursing workforce collaborative. And it's in response to, you know, the shortage of nurses, the burnout, the people leaving the profession.
Right.
In their definition of nurses, they included CNAs, home health aides,
Okay.
you know, personal care workers. I can email you and William.
Yeah.
It's Chris Otto, you know, from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that would be helpful. I mean, I think especially if we're looking at the workforce, and I think Senator Benini, I think, are you co-chairing that one? That subgroup? But
I think so, yeah.
yeah, so I mean, I think, you know, getting them plugged in, you know, there would be ideal. If there is, you know, some, again, we don't want to reinvent wheels. Want to work collaboratively. And I think, you know, I'm just going to offer, you know, my thought is that, again, coming out of the pandemic, obviously workforce is a huge issue in almost every industry at this point. But I also think, you know, people are starting to realize that the home health aides and that work and the nursing workforce is under a lot of stress and needs to make sure that it can continue in order to provide the necessary and really important work that they do. So to help people and families, you know, can be able to do, you know, live their lives and do their work. So I think it's post-pandemic, and I think we're getting to a point where we just a lot of re-examination of work is going on with all the different things that the pandemic has laid bare. And I think we're looking at aging, and as we age, people are starting to look at that as much as they're looking at the importance of childcare as well. So that's my view on it. Senator Benini?
Oh, thanks, Pierce. And I apologize, everybody, for my voice. No, I'm not going through puberty again. that was a rough time.
Your colleagues on the Senate floor would appreciate that now.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I grew like 9 inches, so I'd be really, really tall if I went through puberty. But I had a question. There's so many experts on the panel, and I just don't know. But I realize that, and I missed the presentation. I apologize. But do we have a good grid of, you know, states that are doing specific, or municipalities are doing specific things really, really well that we can emulate? And I mean, if you were to say, oh, you know, let's look at the issue at the workforce, you know, issue with, I feel very strongly that we need to be able to assist, you know, spouses and family caregivers. You know, are there state policies out there that we like, oh, look, Minnesota's doing it right? Has there been that level of analysis? Do we know?
I'm going to kind of defer a little bit to Melissa. I'm just thinking from the Advancing States presentation.
Yeah, and I apologize, I missed some of that. So I apologize if I'm rehashing things.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I'm going to defer to Melissa.
Sure. I think the short answer is we can have that data available. And we didn't necessarily present it last time because just time limitations between talking of the balance between Delaware and state level, and national level. But absolutely, I think we can leverage you know, our agency as well as Advancing States to do some of that research. And
that would be. Yeah, that would be, I'm sorry to interrupt. That would be great, because I know one of the things that we're really good at in Delaware is we've been able to, in some of these other, you know, in different subject areas, we're able to, we don't have the big burden of ego that it has to be our solution. We're more than willing to take best practices. So, okay, thank you very much.
And I think
Thanks,
a
Melissa.
really,
Thanks, Melissa.
yeah, and I think it's a really good segue too, as I know there will be, you know, later on in the agenda, we'll start talking a little bit more about the subgroups, but, you know, if our data needs start to be identified, or, hey, you know, let's take a, you know, we have William again. We're really working. William is getting. We're getting our money's worth with William in the support he's providing. If there is going to be are going to be any needs for information or, at least at a high level to support the working groups, or an information request like this that Senator Bonini had in terms of, hey, what are some potential, best practices that already exist in certain areas, please, feel free to, float those by. So William, so we can start to, get you that information. And again, we definitely want to make sure that we're connecting with other groups in the state. Again, I did not know the Nurses Association was pursuing this, so I definitely want to make sure we connect, our subgroup with the Nursing Association, just to be like, hey, maybe there's some data and some information that can flow that way. So again, we're not recreating the wheel. We're not operating in silos. So feel free to just, again, members of the working group, to please raise those requests, and we'll get them handled. Any other thoughts? I see a couple more folks have joined us. Amy and Elizabeth, welcome. Chris, I'm sorry, your hand is raised.
Thanks, Senator. The one thing on your comment that we are here now and referring to the previous meeting, thank you. The presentation, Melissa, that you did and the work with Advancing States, for me, it was encouraging to see that planning has been underway and that there are strategies in place that you're looking to implement on support for family caregivers, getting access and making sure that people have access to services, whether it's via Medicaid and elsewhere. So I think that was encouraging to hear, and that you're launching forward with that plan. Thank you, Senator.
I'm glad to hear it, and I'll just jump in and say we'll be conducting our focus groups with caregivers in Delaware very shortly, and so we'll be excited and ready to share some of that data with you all to inform our decisions going forward.
Super. So any other comments about, again, from the presentations from the previous meetings that we've had, just to share before we move on to hearing from caregivers and individuals? Okay, wonderful. Well, this would be a good segue. Like I said, we've heard from a bunch of different organizations. Again, we heard from Ed Ratledge, we've heard from Advancing States, we've heard, from all sorts of organizations that are studying the problem, but equally important, if not more, is to hear from folks who are actually living it. And again, we want to make sure that when, as we're discussing this and developing policies and recommendations, we are grounded in reality. Not to say that it's not reality elsewhere, but just, what are our particular circumstances here in the state? So we are able to have some folks that are willing to share their stories with us. And I'm just going to ask everyone who's going to present to give us 5-10 minutes of their perspective, understanding what our group is about, their perspective, their experiences. What do they wish existed? What do they wish did not exist? Just so we have, an understanding that, again, as we develop policies, that these are policies and recommendations that are going to have a real impact on real people in their lives and their caregivers. So I would just like to thank, again, I'm going to have to jump off in about 10 minutes, and then I will watch the recording later, but I want to thank everyone who's going to present in advance. And like I said, please, looking at about 5 or 10 minutes and from each person, or 5, to share their thoughts, and any conversation that sort of evolves from that. So I'm going to start from the bottom up, if you don't mind. I'm going to start with Marie. Marie Dash, welcome.
Hi. I see they have me listed as an individual aging in place. Correct?
Did we get that correct?
Well, kinda. I have just started in that category, really. I was a caregiver for my husband for, I don't even know how many years. He was 20-year veteran and developed Parkinson's from Agent Orange in Vietnam. And I took care of him up until 2014, I believe, when he finally asked to go into a nursing home because he knew I couldn't take care of him much longer, and ended up at the VA Community Living Center. And he was there for 5 years. He passed away last May in 2020. So now I am an individual aging in place. So, and I don't know how it is for other people. It's a big change, especially if you were married, living with a spouse, and then all of a sudden you're by yourself. I mean, my husband was a 20-year veteran, so I was used to being, living on my own on occasions, but not like this. Now I have the house to take care of, and my income has been really split in half. So it is a big change, and it takes time to adjust. Fortunately for me, I have a lot of family here. We've always supported one another, and I'm able to get around on my own. But I can see where it would be difficult for a lot of seniors, especially those that are living by themselves and have no means of transportation. Their income is limited. I mean, when I heard them talking about shutting down the government about a month or so ago, I had to stop and think about that, because the bulk of my income now is from survivor's benefit through the VA and Medicare. I have 2 pensions, but they're not that much because moving around in the military, I didn't work at one job very long. And thank God when I got back to Wilmington, I was able to do 15 years one place and 15 another. So I do get a small pension from those 2, but the bulk of my income is through Medicare and the VA survivor benefit. So I'm really interested in what you all are thinking about. When I raised my hand initially, I was asking or wondering to myself, what are they looking at as an end game to this? Because if it's just discussion, it's not going to help. It's got to be an end goal, and then, something put into action.
No, absolutely. We are certainly looking at, coming up with things that can improve, and actually actions that can improve. What, I mean, in your experience, what would you, as you were caring for your husband, what do you wish was there that wasn't, or that isn't there, that would have made it easier for you in that sort of role?
Well, one thing was someone to come in and be with him if I had other things to do. And I was fortunate enough to have family. I have 2 daughters that were living in the city. So, but then you have to consider, and I'm looking at that now, they're still working. So they have, commitments themselves. But having someone to come in and just sit for a few hours, and it depends on the individual person, what their needs are as well. With my husband, he was very active. He was still able to get around, and his mind was fine. I just needed someone there to assist him, if he wanted something to eat, or because with the Parkinson's at some stages, they freeze when they're in a narrow space.
Right.
And depending on the medications they're on, their mind, wanders. They start to see things that aren't there. So it was just a matter of having somebody there to fill in for me if I had to go, to the grocery store, or had a doctor's appointment.
Right.
Just somebody to assist. And most of the time it's during the day, but I know there are people that require assistance at night too. And just to let you know, I'm 5'1" and my husband was 6'1". And it wasn't easy trying to get him up out of a chair or
Sure.
get him to the bathroom if he fell. Thank goodness we came here to the center for that instruction on how, what to do when you do have a fall and how not to fall. Because it did help me on one occasion when he slipped trying to get back into bed. And it's just,
Right.
some people might think they're minor things, but when you're in a situation like that, it's pretty major.
Right. So it sounds like, and I'm going to turn it over to, it sounds like what I'm hearing is having that support, that respite care, that ability to have some support so you can do things that you needed to do, but also there's education that,
Yes.
that would have been helpful, that was helpful and can continue to be helpful. Jean.
Maria, I just wanted to ask you a question because I was wondering, was your husband not eligible for you to have help come in? Were you told that, or did you just feel like you needed to do that for him yourself?
I really didn't feel like I needed to do that piece. And like I said, I had family that was able to help me. And when it got to the point where, he felt he needed to go into a nursing home, that was because he was falling. We didn't realize at the time, we thought he was having seizures. But as time went by and the doctors started looking at it, because he was on 2 seizure medications and they weren't helping, they finally started looking further and realized that it was his blood pressure. And this is one of the things that can happen with Parkinson's patients. He would stand up and his blood pressure would drop to 2 digits. And thank goodness for me, he didn't pass out completely. He knew, he could feel it coming on, so he would let me know and I would try to get him somewhere quick where I could either hold him up on my own, which I did one day getting out of the car. I just had to lean up against him and press him against the car to keep him from falling on the sidewalk. And it took about 10 minutes before he was able to actually walk. But I just didn't feel like I needed to get into, going to an agency at that time to get assistance. And we had one friend who was a home health care aide who wasn't working at the time, and she was willing to help.
Good.
And so that's where I was, but I'm sure there are other people that, would have benefited from that.
Do you feel like there was something that would have helped your husband stay home? Or did you both feel that it just gotten to the point where it was not going to be manageable?
We had looked at that, but because of, we knew what eventually was going to happen with the Parkinson's, he wasn't going to be able to get around. And I thought about it, but he would have to go to the doctor, which meant, we'd have to have somebody come in. We had a lot of steps at our house. We have to go up quite a few to get into the house. And then, our rooms are up on the 2nd floor. And going up and down the steps I knew would be an issue. And we just, at that point, with the condition he was in, we decided the best place would be to the nursing home. So he requested to go to the VA. like I said, he volunteered there for 6 years. And he knew what, the CLC was like. He knew how they functioned. And I was a little upset when we applied that they told him they couldn't take him. He was a 20-year veteran with an illness that was caused by his military service. And when they told us that, it was like, okay, why can't you take him? And I was pretty much told that he would be too much work for them, which I couldn't believe because they had patients in there that couldn't do anything for themselves. And at that time, he was able to get around. He just wasn't driving at the time. And thank goodness for the social worker that we were working with. She couldn't understand why they would deny him, but she said she would try to get him in on a 14-day respite. But she needed me to understand that if they still didn't accept him, that he would have to come back home, which I knew that would be the case. On the 12th day, they told her they would take him. So he never really came back home from that 14-day respite visit. And it took him a while to adjust, but because he was able to get around, I could go and take him out for a ride to visit. We would have family gatherings. But eventually it got to the point where, he couldn't go out that much. I would even bring him here to the center. He would catch the DART paratransit from the VA. They would drop him off here and I would be here to meet him. And then I'd drive him back or we'd arrange for DART to take him back.
That's excellent. Marie. That's good that's a.
Well, he used DART paratransit when he was volunteering because he wasn't driving.
Right.
But it was a big help. And I encourage, I have a sister now who has been diagnosed with Parkinson's, and I'm trying to convince her that she needs to sign up for the DART paratransit to get back and forth for her appointments and any place that she would need to go. But because she's still able to drive, she's a little reluctant. And I can understand giving up your independence is difficult. I can imagine what I'd be like when I get to that point.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think we have Maggie has a question also for you, Marie.
Okay.
Hi, Miss Marie. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I wanted to obviously give thanks for your husband's service. I know that that's a lifetime commitment, but that support of the spouse during military services.
Yes.
It's a lot, my friend. I was a military spouse myself, and there's a lot that goes into that. So, and I appreciate you just sharing all of this. My only question for you was, in the time as a caregiver, you spoke about DART, and I know that it sounds like you were attending the senior center. Were there any other support services that you were using in the home? Was there maybe meals that were being provided, or was there, as you were doing caregiving, were you getting paid to be his caregiver? I was just wondering if there was any other additional supports that were utilized.
Not really. I really never even thought about it. And if it hadn't been for him bringing up the nursing home issue, I probably would have continued taking care of him at home as long as I could.
Okay, and you didn't receive any type of support or direction from the VA? I was just curious if they had maybe provided any support as you were connecting with them.
Not really. I mean, he went to the VA for his medical needs, but there really wasn't, because once he got into the CLC and I was there every day, they would ask me, why I came every day. Well, it was obvious because there were things that should have happened that weren't happening. But I often asked them if they had a support group, connected with the VA, you know, because we still continue to attend the support group meetings that we connected with when he was at home. I would pick him up and we would still go to those meetings. But as far as any need or using any of the services that the VA would or could offer, there really wasn't anything that I saw that would have been any help. When he was at home, you know, they provided things in the bathroom that we would make it more comfortable for him. Just, you know, a chair, what do you call it, little potty thing in the bedroom. Because at night, of course, he wasn't able to move that well. And trying to get him down the hall to the bathroom and then getting him up off the toilet was an issue. But I know most of that stuff was through Medicare. They would order it and have it delivered. They would come and set it up for me. But other needs, I just never even thought about. I mean, as far as I was concerned, he was my husband, you know, and I was there to take care of him as best I could.
Marie, thank you very much. It takes a lot of courage to share your experience both as a senior aging in place and as a caregiver also in both roles. Both of those aspects are crucial to our work here. Chris, I do see your hand up. Do you have a question that may be a little brief? Only the reason why I say brief is just because I do want to make sure we get time for our other friends who are going to be speaking. And I think we have 4 to 5 others who are going to be speaking. So could you ask your question for Marie, and then we'll move on to Dolores?
Thank you, Representative. Yes, I will be brief. Ms. Marie, thank you very much. I'll echo Maggie for sharing and also for you and your husband's service. The thing, if I'm hearing you correctly, echoes some of the things that we've talked about and the importance of transportation, but also I think what I heard from you is your work to advocate for your husband and also the social worker that you reached out to. And I think that's something that I've heard from members of this committee. If you would agree that advocacy to make sure that people have access to services seems very important to me. I don't know whether that came from you first or the social worker, and that was my quick question, and thank you, Representative. But I think for me, that advocacy is so important.
Yes, it was very helpful.
And yeah, that, you know, I think that the real interesting piece, much of what you said, Marie, has been very interesting and helpful, but the piece that I never think about is like that continuity of relationship and schedule in terms of having your husband be able to come to the center and work with DART to make that happen. You know, keeping those social ties in the community is so important.
Yes.
So was that because you asked for that, or did the VA suggest that?
No, let me tell you, my husband, when he retired, he was still functioning. He worked for an allergist for 22 years. The senior center was the thing that he loved the best. I have to tell you, he was dedicated. He would come down here every morning when he was able to do it on his own. And when he wasn't, he made sure I either got him here in the morning or someone would pick him up and drop him off. But he would come and take blood pressure checks for the members and let them know if they should go and see their doctor. He wasn't trying to play doctor or anything, but he would come and check on them. He believed in staying active. So he would, if they were telling me the other day that they had a problem with the machine or something when they were doing exercise. He put on some music and got them on the floor and did exercises with them.
It was fun.
So my membership with the senior center is because of my husband's dedication to the senior center.
Well, excellent. Well, I think one note I'm gonna take away from this is how do we link up that type of interaction for others in our community. So thank you
Yes,
again, Marie. Thank you for
it
your
is important.
And so I think we'll now go to, unless you have something to add, please do stay on and listen. Your input and your membership on our team is very valuable. Dolores Spencer, is Dolores?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good, excellent, Dolores. Well, it's your turn now. Can you please tell us a bit about yourself and where you live and your involvement with the center?
I live 25 West 20th Street, around the corner from the center. I took care of my husband for over a year and a half. He had lung cancer that turned into liver. He didn't go into any, we went to the doctors quite often, and he couldn't drive anymore. So we had to get, what's that bus, Dash? Dark bus. And we would get that to go back and forth to the doctors because our 4 sons, well, 3 of them here in Delaware, all worked. So to get back and forth to the doctors, which he had to go quite often, we went. And then when he got to not able to go to the doctor, a nurse would come like maybe once every other week and just test his blood pressure and stuff like that. And that was about it for 10 minutes. And, but one son, he would come every other day and give him a bath, you know, shower him and everything because he was getting weak. And he wasn't eating much, but he never really went into hospice until 2 days before he died. And,
I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but we
So
were
you-
married a long time. I think we were married 55 years when he died.
And you had some family support.
Oh,
And-
yeah, I have 5 nieces that are all RNs.
Oh, wow.
And I have a niece and a nephew now that are in nursing school.
Good.
And,
You, Miss Spencer, are you, so do you currently live alone?
yes, well, I have a son that just moved in, but he ain't gonna stay there long. He'll be there for a month or 2.
Now, how are you finding managing, you managed, being a caregiver and caring for yourself? How are you
It's
managing?
hard. It's
What are
hard.
your-
I mean,
What's hard?
it's hard. I mean, what it is, it's like that empty feeling in the house. You know, when you're used to being with your partner all this time, it's empty, you know. I keep the upkeep of the house, and when I don't have something I can't do, one of the boys will come over or they'll have someone come and fix whatever has to be done.
Is there anything that you think would help you, in terms of, what does help you in terms of that filling up that emptiness or some technical use? It's great you have that family support to fix things in the house.
Well, the emptiness, I really, during the day, I keep busy a couple days a week over at the center here for exercise, and I do the weed bowling. So that fills a lot of time up. And then sometime I go once a month, help my sister out at the daycare.
So I hear that that's really important to you then, is having those community places to be at.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine how would you feel if you didn't have those options? Or
Yeah.
do you think, are there other services, are there other things that you can think of that would help you, be able to stay in your home and be happy in your home and receive what you need to stay there?
I think I can stay in my home. I don't want to move into no apartment or anything like that. I like staying in my home. as long as the boys stay, well, I have one son in Arizona, and one in Newark, but the other two are right local, and one out, if he doesn't get me on the phone the second time, he's right there. So, you know, they're pretty, two of them are pretty steady. They would be right there.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Spencer about her experiences? Any insight that you'd like from her?
If I can ask a question, I just think it's,
Well,
I
well,
think it's
buy
wonderful.
cab tickets.
Oh.
And
I wanted to know if she had any problems with transportation or how
Hold
she
on,
got
well,
around
if-
because
if we
she
can-
does
my
not drive.
husband, I used the dark bus thing.
Okay, if we
used that
can, I think
transportation
Representative Briggs
that.
King Representative Briggs King had a question, so I'm going.
Thank you. I did, and I so appreciate your sharing your story with us. One of the questions I had, and I'm very glad that you're engaging in your local senior center, which can provide so many things for you. Are you getting any assistance with meal preparation or meals at home? Because I know sometimes it can be difficult to want to cook or eat right when you're just one person. And so I didn't know if you were getting any help or any assistance with any of those other kind of maybe dietary needs.
No, I don't have any problems with food and cooking and all, because if I cook too much, one of the boys will come and get the rest.
I want to say it's endearing to hear how your boys are so engaged and taking care of you, because that does two
Oh,
things.
yeah.
One, it shows how they are, but it's also a wonderful example for their children, if they have any, to see
Yeah,
what good boys do for their parents.
yeah.
I echo that, Representative. I have two boys myself, and I hope one day they'll
I have 4 boys.
if anybody else has that question, please raise your hand and then I'll call on you. And if you can't see the raise your hand feature, just please speak up.
I wanted to
I
ask
just-
Dolores about the transportation.
And is this Elizabeth speaking or who's speaking?
Kathleen,
Oh, Kathleen. Oh, hi. How are you? I see.
I wanted her to talk a little bit about transportation because she doesn't drive and she does get around quite well. So I wanted
Oh,
to know how
yeah,
you.
well, you know,
what you-
talking about that, matter of fact, I had signed up for that bus, the
Dark protest.
dark road. And matter of fact, the paper come in the mail today. But normally I can ride the regular bus, or I work my schedule around appointments now that one of my sisters can take me.
Okay.
Now it's not all the time. It's according to what their schedule is, because one does daycare and one does another job or something. But I always find out from them, you know. And so,
Yeah, that's crucial, Kathleen, is making sure that we have that ability for seniors to get from place A to place B, and reduces isolation and helps other positives.
oh, and I have the cab tickets. You
What's
buy
that?
the cab ticket. It's the taxi cab tip. So for seniors, like I just bought for $50, $100 worth of rides. And like you go somewhere, anywhere you go, you pull out that amount of tickets. If they say $20, you pull out $20 worth of tickets. It's through DART.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Ever heard of them? Yeah, I have the cab ticket.
Oh, good to know. Thank you. Any other questions?
Like I just bought.
Ms. Spencer?
$50.
No? All right, well, thank you, Ms. Spencer. I really,
Oh, you're quite welcome.
and now we'll hear from Bianca Aldejan from the Latin American Community Center. Bianca, yes?
It comes in handy. Those tickets.
Hello, good afternoon. Can
Hi,
you hear
good
me?
afternoon. Yes, we
Yes.
can.
My name is Bianca Aldegon. I'm the program coordinator for the Latin American Community Center, and we work with the seniors. It's called Los Abuelos, which means the grandfathers in Spanish. So for the seniors that I attend, yesterday me and my coworker, Nelia Mejia, we had a group and we was asking them what would prevent them from aging in place. A lot of them said that insurance was a problem. Having courage to be able to pay someone to care for them. Even though they have family, but most of the family already work jobs. So I know right now there is a thing that, you know, if your family, you can become the person's caregiver. But I'm thinking as a CNA myself, if you are working someplace else and you making XY amount of money to become a family caregiver and care for that person, you'll be actually taking a pay cut. So that's one of the things that would be very difficult for a person to even take care of their family, even if they really wanted to. I have a couple that live in at the apartment where we have our groups with the seniors, and her husband had prostate cancer. He has prostate cancer. And she was a caregiver herself to another one of the seniors that are living in the apartment. Right after COVID, she lost her job as a caregiver. And she had to care for her husband, who has now prostate cancer. But the problem with him is that even he has been working in the United States for 9 years. And in order for you to get Social Security benefit, you have to work at least 10 years. 1 year prevented him from having Social Security benefits, where will help them out to continue to pay their rent and continue to live at home. I have been going up and down trying to help him with this, and nothing, it seemed like nothing, no doors were opening, and they were losing hope. It wasn't until a couple of times that he had to be admitted to the hospital that a social worker in the hospital was able to pick up on his case, and they were able to put him in the long-term care, which is now paying his wife to care for him. And that's one of the good things that are happening, but that seems to be one of the biggest problems with the seniors in our community, is the lack of resources, the lack of financially is difficult for them. Their family involvement, a lot of them don't have family that are near, since a lot of them are immigrants. So that's what I gathered from the information with the group talk that we had yesterday.
Thank you, Bianca. Thank you for sharing. And you mentioned Nelia. Would you like to add anything, or did you come together for? I know you both are with the LACC. Would you like to add anything, or?
She speaks Spanish, and they said that they had someone that would interpret. I don't know if that person.
Yeah, I believe Emily Diaz. Are you on the call?
Yeah, hi. Buenos días, buenas tardes, Ms. Mejía. Si me puede oír, el grupo que se llama en español Envejecer en Lugar, quieren saber si usted quiere compartir su experiencia con los miembros de este grupo sobre sobre cuidando gente mayores de edad, o con su experiencia, si tiene idea para compartir sobre envejecimiento en casa. So si quiere hablar ahora, yo puedo ayudar comunicar lo que usted dice.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Hola.
Mi nombre es Neila Mejías, soy de Venezuela y actualmente me encuentro en Delaware hace 2 años aproximadamente. Estoy nueva formando parte del programa del Latin Center conjuntamente con la señora Bianca, y muy agradecida con la oportunidad que me dan. Me siento muy complacida de poder ayudar al adulto mayor, y lo que me tocaría agregar es que hay mucha inquietud del adulto mayor, porque sus condiciones no son totalmente las adecuadas, aun cuando el programa y el centro trata de brindar todo lo que pueda. Estamos tratando de cubrir en cierta parte sus necesidades en cuestiones de alimentación, de medicina, aun cuando sabemos que no es lo suficiente. Muchos de los adultos mayores se encuentran solos, no tienen un familiar y tienen que ellos mismos salir a cubrir sus necesidades en el sentido de buscar quien preste la ayuda. Otra cosa muy importante que he notado es que el idioma es una barrera muy fuerte al momento de salir a buscar la ayuda, por lo menos en los centros de atención. La barrera del idioma entorpece la necesidad que presenta el adulto mayor en su momento. Aun cuando hay muchos adultos mayores que manejan el idioma de inglés, hay muchos que todavía no lo manejan. Entonces eso también quisiera que se tomara mucho en cuenta al momento de cuando el adulto sale a buscar ayuda y no la recibe porque se encuentra con discriminación, no toma en realidad la necesidad que está presentando, sino lo que en el momento de traducir o de dar la información, ellos entienden o transmiten, sobre todo esa parte.
Thank you. Emmy, are you able to translate for us what Nelia just said?
Yeah, absolutely. Part of what she says echoes what Ms. Aldegon said in terms of the services that LACC offers. That's one. She said one of the things she encounters a lot when it comes to elderly trying to get like help is for their community anyway, is the language barrier. They're not able to get proper translation services. And because of that language barrier, it's hard for them to communicate their needs because there isn't someone on the other side who can hear them properly in the language that they're expressing their need in. So she said it's something that they encounter a great deal of at their center is the fact that there's no proper translation services available to them. At least that's more, the audio is a little bit like tough for me to hear, but that's a big part of, and she also says that she thanks everyone for allowing her to speak and that she's grateful to be a part of this this working group to give her input. So
wonderful. Emmy, thank you for that. And I love that we're able to do this on Zoom. This translation piece, and I appreciate Nelia for your thoughts and Emmy for your translation. Emmy, I have a follow-up question for Nelia, and others may have the same question. We live in, it's 2021 and we have developed a lot of great technology in terms of translation services. I'm wondering if the LACC or Nelia personally has found anything that works really well. Is there any type of translation service, either through an app or anything that has helped? And does she have any suggestions for how we can improve translation services to help her seniors?
Hi, Ms. Mejia. Quieren saber o si pues como hay muchos servicios disponibles como los apps en los teléfonos que pueden traducir información. Ella quiere saber si usted o la persona de LACC ha usado esos servicios como en computadora, como Google Translate o servicios que están en los teléfonos y eso que son buenos para traducir palabras en español a inglés o cosas en inglés en español.
Buenas tardes, yo soy Bianca. Yo puedo responder esa pregunta. I will answer for Nelia that question. So during COVID, most of our seniors, we had to do what was like a virtual reality, a virtual senior center. And we had to use Zoom. For the seniors, the lack of understanding of new technology is very difficult to comprehend. It's not just a one button thing that you can just press and it will translate or anything like that for you, or able to understand new technology. It's very difficult for seniors. For us to continue on the virtual senior center, it was very difficult for them to understand just to connect to Zoom. And the use of the new technology, even though it's something, it might be something easier for the new generation, for the young people, but for seniors, it's very difficult. I think that would be probably be the same as in English and in Spanish. So that's what I would say.
A fair point, Bianca, Amelia. But it could be key too, and there could be some ways that there's some, it is a new art that has to be taught and learned, and it's difficult to learn. But it could also be, I think, we could, if we develop the right programs, it might be a good tool for seniors to be connected without having to leave their homes, and receive services. So if ever you have any suggestions for how we might improve that, that could be an interesting aspect of our work here on this committee. But Bianca and Amelia, I really thank you for your work in the community and for the great things that you do for seniors and for your input today. It looks like we have one more question. We have one from Chris Frazier. What would you like to ask? Bianca?
Thank you, Representative. Bianca and Amelia, muchas gracias. Thank you for the work that you do. It's so valuable at LECC. We know that at Westside and all of us in our community organizations that partner with you. We've seen some wonderful opportunities when people, come into the center and we can use some of those apps. And I'm really hearing what you're saying. I'm wondering, are you working with any local educational institutions? Because as we've looked at people coming out into the workforce, CNAs, nurses, who might benefit from learning some helpful learning the language. Are you seeing opportunities there with schools or educators? Is that something that you think might be helpful to develop programs in that way?
Yeah, I definitely think that's something that will be helpful. Like one of the things that a lot of our seniors face with when it comes to the part of the caregivers and CNAs and people to help them at home is that they are not able to they're not a lot of Spanish caregivers, number one. And you might put someone that speaks English in their home to help them, but the language is lack of barrier, the language barrier is a difficult thing to maneuver.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Good question. Good points there. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bianca. Thank you, Amelia. And I think now we can hear from Mr. Harris, Robert Harris. Are you with us? Will, do we have Robert with us?
Yes, Representative. Mr. Harris, you should be able to unmute now. I believe it's *6 is what you'll press on your phone. But Mr. Harris, you can speak now.
Mr. Harris, can you hear us? Well, I think we wait for Mr. Harris to resolve maybe a technical issue. We have our friend Wendell, who we know from different areas, who's going to also speak to us. Oh, here we go. All right, Wendell, just wait for a minute. Mr. Harris, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you wonderfully. Yes, welcome. Welcome to our committee. Thank you for being with us today. And we're so delighted that you are willing to share your experience as an individual aging in place. So I'm going to mute myself, and I would love for you to tell us a little bit about you yourself, where you live, how old you are, and what you like about living in your home and what challenges you may have that we can help with.
Well, I'm 75 years old. I'm a retired litigation attorney, and my wife and I retired down here to Delaware in 2008, and we live in a community called Nassau Grove, which is just outside Lewis, but our mailing address is Lewis. We came down here for a number of reasons, being near the water, and also the tax structures down here. And what happened now, I have an eye condition that was diagnosed when I was 31 years old that have prevented me from driving. And I was a car person. But anyhow, my wife did all the driving and whatnot. Now, my wife, last March, succumbed to cancer, lung that spread to the brain, went through 2 brain surgeries in the Thomas Jefferson Hospital, lung surgery, and finally passed away on March 10th last year. And as a result, I now am individual living in my home. And my problem right now is that my eye condition is such, I can't be outside in sunlight. I'm sensitive to light. So I basically just spend time in my basement where I built this man cave and a shop and stuff, things like, and I function in the house. Now, my children, I have 2 adult children. One lives in South Jersey, the other lives outside Baltimore. They're both 2 hours away, so they're not nearby. They do come once in a while. They wanted me to go and do an independent living facility, and I almost did down in Catonsville, right near my daughter. And I tried to sell my house, and then I decided I'm comfortable in the house. I know the area in the house. I know where everything is, and I have things to keep me busy, like housekeeping and things like that. But what I miss, beside the fact that my wife, we would have been married 50 years this year, and the fact that we would go out to like dinner and things like that, and I have no outlet. When my kids come down, I tease. They said, "I want to go get a Whopper from Burger King because that's the way to get there." But anyhow, when you speak about transportation, we have a fantastic organization down here. It used to be called the Greater Lewis Community Volunteers. It's now just called the Village Volunteers. And the director, Jackie Sullivan, in fact, lives in my community here, and that's how I learned about it after my wife passed away and I needed transportation. This is an organization, you become a member, you pay $500 a year, and they're volunteer drivers that do a lot of things. And you got to give them, if you want to go to a doctor's, you have to give them 48 hours notice, and they'll find a driver for you. And they'll come to your house, and in my case, they have to help me into the car because they can't see to go outside. And that's the type of organization is set these structures up. Now, according to Jackie, they're trying to coordinate with another community, I think, further down towards Bethany and whatnot, and maybe merge so they have a greater territory they can cover. And I tell you, if you can set those things up in communities, it is absolutely fabulous. And most of the volunteers are seniors. They're all retired people, and they volunteer doing this. And I have one neighbor that both he and his wife volunteer drivers. They volunteer to do cooking, things like. And that's another thing the volunteers will do. Occasionally they'll do a little light housekeeping. We have one volunteer will do gardening for the people, and that's just what they do. And it really is great. And if you can establish something like that in certain areas, and now I've utilized the division with the visual impaired, but that's up in Dover and again. And if some of the resources would be like in the county seat, like Georgetown, where I could access that with one of the volunteers to go there. And but I seem to be able to function so far, and I do miss, again, going out to dinner, socializing. I feel I can't impose to my neighbors, say, "Hey, let's go out to dinner because I need you to drive me," even though I would pick up the tab or what. But you have some social vehicle. Now our senior center is not too far away. I could theoretically walk along the new bike trail and stuff, but I can't do it at daytime. I'd have to arrange with somebody there to come and get me, and I might look into that. So it is transportation. If you can set up volunteer organizations among retirees, that would be fabulous. And they do, like this volunteer, they do have an office, so they maintain a computer system and they arrange for everything. And it really is great. But
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Our deep condolences on the loss of your wife. I am very sorry to hear
Yeah.
that. But I appreciate it. And I know your representative, I think, Representative Briggs King, is Mr. Harris your constituent?
My senator was Lopez.
No, I believe he's in Representative Smick's district.
Oh, Representative Smith. Okay, sorry, Georgetown was mentioned. That's all right. Well, good. Are there any questions at all for Mr. Harris? Now, Mr. Harris, I actually before I have a question. You mentioned the transportation and the socialization and going out for
Right.
dinner. Are there any groups, like does your senior center have like a dining out group that of other seniors that also would like to maybe go out for dinner on a Saturday evening or go to the movies on a Sunday afternoon? Are there any does your senior center coordinate activities like that?
And honest with you, I haven't. My wife and I didn't join this. I'm going to look into joining the Citizen Center because our community who had social activities, they do have once a month called the Dine Around, where they pick a restaurant and go. And I could hook up with somebody with that. But I'm just acclimating to the fact that my wife is gone now, so I pretty much try and stay at my house and things like that. But I do think about things, and once, like I said, my kids come down or come up, as the case may be. But they both have their families, and I'm just again. It's been a year and a half since my wife passed, so I'm just getting adjusted to that whole situation.
Yeah, and you've been in a situation where we've had a pandemic, which nobody, which is, you can't, it's not normal. Life's not normal right now because of that. So I'm sure it's hard. You bring up a good point. Like, how do you transition from being in a couple, to being, a single individual in terms of social and how that's a big transition, I'm sure.
Yeah. And again, like I said, it was actually my wife. It's very sudden, so to speak. She didn't have long suffering. She found out about it as an accident that she had cancer. But be that as it may, it was tough. I mean, losing her, and I depended obviously for years. For 40 years, I depended on her for transportation, and I knew that put a burden on her. But we learned to do things together, and that's part of the problem. Is we relied on each other for things. We traveled and whatnot, and now all of a sudden I'm alone, and that's very awkward to deal with. Although I do like my privacy, so to speak. But I mean, I couldn't even barbecue in the back deck because of bright light, the sunlight. I have to make breakfast before sunrise and have dinner after sunset because my first floor is all windows, and I'm getting around now that I'm not going to move. I'm going to put blackout curtains around. But other than that, I do miss getting out, going out to dinner or different activities. I used to go to the movies, and believe it or not, I could go to the movies with my eyesight, but be that as it is. And like I said, I just decided I want to stay in the house. I really, deep down, I really didn't want to leave, but my kids were forcing me to leave. Saying, you can't.
Yeah.
Going upstairs and downstairs and stuff like that.
Let me run down and open the door for you.
So I coped with it, and I decided I want to stay. I'll see what happens, but the transportation, like I say, if you're in your areas, either through your senior center, set up a system where you have people just say, I'll be available at such and such a time. And what happens, I call the office and I say I have a doctor's appointment at such and such a time. And give them 48 hours, they'll find the driver. Next thing you know, I'll be notified so-and-so is going to pick you up at so-and-so and drop you home. And that's how that works. Now, I haven't asked them to make a dinner for me. So now, some of my neighbors have done that for me. And my daughter, when she comes up, she'll make up things, and she makes like her own homemade frozen dinners and stuff, puts in the freezer. I just eat in the microwave. So I became somewhat resourceful.
Wow. Well, thank you, Mr. Harris, for sharing your experiences and the importance of transportation and also the issue with your medical condition and that how we need to be thinking more outside of the box in terms of different hours that you may need help, to be able to accommodate that difficulty that you have. Chris, you raised your hand. Did you want to, but then you lowered it. Did you want to ask Mr. Harris? I don't want to miss any questions. Would you like to ask Mr. Harris anything?
Thank you, Representative. I appreciate you still allowing me to ask questions right at the end. Mr. Harris, thank you so much for sharing. My name's Chris Fraser from Westside Family Healthcare. And I think one thing I just want to make sure I heard you and ask a question. Did you say that you will be looking, do you think that you'll be able to do some modifications and add some blackout curtains? Because as I'm sitting on this committee, I'm thinking about something like you mentioned about staying in your home and modifications that individuals like yourself might need to make. Is that something that you're going to be able to move forward with?
Yeah, I think so. I don't have a problem with that. Just have to have someone come and install them.
Great, thank you.
I would try it, but like I say, I can get around the house as long as the sun is not in the right direction and right in the house. And I even going outside, the sun, it doesn't bother me. I just can't see. It's like, just think of being snow blinded. Basically, that's what it is. I can see shadows and things like that. But again, and I do now wear one of those necklaces with the alarm system. So if I fall, it'll know that I fell. But other than that, I can go up and down stairs in the house, which I do. Like I said, I have my man cave in the basement. And, but it is, and when it comes to eating, sometimes I just don't want to eat because I want to have the hassle of make something. So sometimes I miss meals. And again, I don't want to eat alone. So it's just basically adjusting to the situation I have now. But I'm going to look into joining the senior center. As I said, it's not too far away.
Do you want us some help with that, Mr. Harris? Would you like some help from Will, or one of us can get you that information if that's helpful to you?
Well, I can get somebody to drive me over there. And I mean, my wife and I, when we first moved down here, we looked into it, and then we realized that our community had a lot of facilities and so forth, so we didn't do it. And now I think I will do it. And I just sign up, and I'm sure maybe they'll have some sort of arrangement where they could come and get me. Because I don't live that far. I don't.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Jean, what would you like to ask Mr. Harris?
A couple of things. Mr. Harris, I'm Jean Mullen. I'm the executive director for the Delaware Home Care Association. And I felt like I heard a couple of things from you, is the socialization you're missing, and going out to eat and things like that. But also you mentioned that your daughter brings you homemade meals that she freezes. And that intrigues me a little bit because it is different than a frozen dinner from the grocery store. And perhaps, that kind of volunteerism could be converted into cooking as well.
Absolutely. In fact, she does it down here. She'll make like a meatloaf or something like that, or beef stew. And she found these oversized trays at, I think, Home Goods, not the punch. It's like a TV type of dinner with compartments. And she'll have the entree and two sides and stuff and the top, and she puts in the freezer. And she'll do it here. She'll make me a cake, brownies, things like that. So in fact, she's coming this weekend, and I'm going to get her culinary abilities. She's a fantastic cook and loves to do it and bake. So she fills up my freezer with different dinners and stuff like that. And it is fresh made.
Which probably makes you more interested in eating. So, because you said, you don't eat a lot sometimes because, you just not feel like cooking it yourself too. And then I heard, I had to step away for a minute, but Chris asked you about blackout curtains. And I just wanted to mention something that I'd seen yesterday, which is they sell accordion shades at like Home Depot and Lowe's, and they cost $6 a piece. And they're paper. They're really disposable. You can put them up, and people use them when they first move into a house. But some people use them permanently. And they'll just, take them down when they're a little weary looking and put up new ones. But they're $6 and they have tape on the top, and you just tape them up inside the opening of your window. They actually make them in black, which is what I saw yesterday. And so I just wanted to mention that to you. If someone could do that shopping for you and get them, they're so easy to put up. Get them put up in your upstairs area. That could be your upstairs man cave. So anyway, they come in standard widths, but you just cut them to size with an X-Acto knife. And I did it myself yesterday. So
Check that out. Thank you.
yes, okay.
Thanks, Jean. That's a great tip. I never heard of those. So good to know. Good to know. This is a kind of neat thing. I we're highlighting things, I think, in this working group about how we all need to recognize that there's individual issues that can be solved for our seniors in the state, and how we find those out and how we link those the ability to solve those problems with people, I think, is crucial, and trying to make sure we can do that, because it seems like that's a simple solution that might help Mr. Harris immensely. And so if there's somebody who can help him with that in his family, and if he doesn't know anyone in his family who he might turn to for that help, and one of the areas is the senior center. Thank you, Jean, and thank you, Chris, for your questions. Mr. Harris, thank you very much for being willing to share some time with us today about your experiences with your wife and yourself.
My pleasure.
And now we'll hear from Wendell. Wendell, welcome, and we're so happy that you are a member of our team, and we're deeply appreciative that you're willing to talk today about being a caregiver, and some of the things that you encounter, and anything that you think we should focus on in terms of our work here as a group.
Great. Thank you very much. You can hear me? Something's happened.
Yes, we hear you very well. Oh, now you're on mute.
Now I'm okay. Now I'm okay. Sorry. Just to speak about caregiving, and how and listen to these wonderful stories from these folks, aging in place individuals with their certain needs. 5 years ago, my partner woke up with a backache, 2 o'clock in the morning, rushed him to the emergency room because he's the type of person that's athletic and had never been sick. And 2 hours later, after x-rays, MRIs, you get the bad news. There's a mass on the bladder. And excuse me. So thus to advance the diagnosis with bladder cancer, bladder removal, prostate removal, the months of chemotherapy prior to the surgery. And this happened at Johns Hopkins and through Tunnel Cancer Center here in Lewis. And I went from being a safety engineer, working pretty much every day of my life, and thus advanced to being a volunteer, very active with AARP, which is why I'm here, but also pleased to be here. So my life went from being an individual to having someone that I had to do for. And I guess my message is that it never fazed me one bit. After the shock, hours of tears and wondering why, I stepped to the plate. And to anyone, my message would be that, if you care for someone, if you love someone, whether it be family or whomever it might be that you're caring for, is to put your personal side just goes out the door. Now I'm here for you. And that's exactly what I've done for 5 years. And I'm pleased to say, just if I may interject, just last week we were at Tunnel Cancer Center, and my partner now is right up to the 5th year, and we're healthy, and thank you. So if all goes well through July of next year, I'm sure it will, that he'll hopefully have passed through this phase of his life. But being a caregiver, every 3 days, if those of you know about bladder cancer, and I won't go into details, but I have to change an appliance. And I've been there for 5 years, every 3rd day, doing exactly what I can do it with my eyes closed almost. And so I went from almost, like I always say, I'm the best nurse that ever was put on the face of the earth. But I really, you take on the duties and you just go with it. And what helped me the most when this diagnosis came into my family was a friend of mine across town that I've known for years. her husband had exactly the same thing. And she drove down the road one day, slammed on the brakes, saw me sitting on the porch, and she said, "Wendell, we're going to talk." Because she had already learned that my partner had bladder cancer and knew what was going to happen. And, you know, what she told me was the most wonderful thing. She really sat for 2 hours, probably, made me get a paper and pad. And I started writing down the things that I was going to need to know. And it started at Johns Hopkins with the nurse there training me how to do what I had to do. And I listened very carefully, took notes out of forever. But when my friend sat with me and explained exactly in detail what I needed, every point lived to fruition. It was carrying an emergency bag in the car whenever you have to go somewhere. Just the things that you would never even dream of doing. And so I don't want to go too long here, but I even reached out from myself, because right after the original surgery, a couple UTIs took place, and he ended up back in BB Hospital. And and what we learned there, and this is not being critical, because I'm president of the auxiliary at BB Medical Center, and I volunteer there. Was there before this meeting today. But I went, I get a call at 2 a.m. and says, I have a problem. Can you run over here? So I get up out of bed, and luckily live very close. But then when my sister-in-law visited just a few weeks ago from Texas, I lost my brother a year ago, who was a veteran Air Force, who had exactly the same thing. And so we talked off and on, and his encouragement helped me. And I think I hopefully helped him too. But we're sitting at the table, and she says, "Have you ever helped anyone else?" And it just hit me right here. And I said, "Oh my goodness." So I called that next morning, I called the School of Nursing, and I said to the director there, I said, I would really like to be a volunteer to come in and speak to your medical, or to your nurses when it's appropriate. And she called me back, said, "Oh my goodness." And this was about ileal conduits and bladder cancer and how to care for someone like that. So I've reached out from my education and what I've learned to try to give that to someone else. And my message is, don't be afraid to reach out and step up to the plate and volunteer. AARP is a volunteer organization. We're volunteering to do what we're doing here. And hopefully we'll, as one of the speakers said earlier, an end game that will touch everyone and somehow or another bring us closer together to help others. And that's been my message all my life, is to reach out and help others, as my parents taught me. And so I'm just pleased that's what's happened in our life, but it hasn't changed my life. It's probably made me a better person. I'm sure it has, for being able to care for someone who could not do those things by himself.
Wendell, thank you. That is a very powerful message. And what is your partner's name?
Mike.
Mike. So happy to hear that Mike is doing well and continue.
Thank you.
Good thoughts for that. I have to just say that I agree with you 100%. And I've been in your shoes in the sense of a parent. My son, when he was just turned 1, he was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. And, the floor fell out from under us, and we didn't know what to do. But it was another mom who is a mother of a child with cancer that I happen to know, who's put the brakes on for me and gave me those steps, to what I needed to kind of focus on, things I wasn't thinking about. And then I've been able to sort of quote unquote pay it forward to other family members who are unfortunately going through that same process. So it is sharing our experiences, and also the grace to listen to what other experiences are when you find those shoes. And I think that is truly what community is, and that's how we do better. And how amazing and powerful that you are volunteering to teach nursing students how to care for individuals who are suffering with bladder cancer and other families going through it. So thank you for all of that. I do want to ask you though, it is hard it is necessary, and when we're caregivers, it is, but there is one thing that does happen, and I just want to see what your reaction to this is. While you are undergoing like the thick of it, the really worst, most difficult times of the caregiving process, how did you take care of yourself? Were there things that you didn't do for yourself that you should have done, or not should have in a like a judgmental way, but just things that were there self-care things that you weren't able to do, and thinking back now that you've gone through this, any takeaways from what we might help caregivers with in terms of that, making sure that were you seeing I know I couldn't go, there were, when I was living at Nemours for 7 months, I had to stop some things that I would have gone to appointments for myself, because I wanted to be at my child's bedside. And I do need to tell you, he's 5 years cancer-free himself. So
Great.
happy ending for that too. But how did you take care of yourself? And were there things that would have been helpful to you in that regard?
Thank you. I think I'd like to think that I'm a strong person because I was a baby of 7. So I grew up with a big family and we had to do, when I listened about the meatloaf and all the meals, well, we all pitched in to do things. But I think for me, it was my outside activities did decrease because I never missed a doctor's appointment with Mike in 5 years. And I'll tell you, and I'm sure everyone knows this, chemo brain is terrible. And it's true. Never think that it's not, because all of a sudden sometimes, and it also, that part also affects me, a caregiver, even though I didn't have chemo, but because you're constantly aware and you're constantly afraid that something's going to happen, as I'm sure as you were with your child. And so, but I had a strong support group. My AARP folks and our director, our state director, was going through a similar problem with her mother. So we really did a lot of back and forth talking and just trying to stay positive. And it's very, very difficult. The night that, back at the hospital and after this initial surgery of removing the cancer at BB, the nurse just had to hold me because I was like, and Mike was saying, what is it? What is it? And I couldn't say, you had cancer. I mean, he knew that it was bad, but he did not know, he had not heard the C word. And the group at Tunnel Cancer Center, and it could be any cancer center because they're all good. Those folks were so, oh my gosh, if I could give everybody 10 stars, on their head, they were the light of my life because I got to know them as friends, even though I was a volunteer at BB, wore a badge when I went there and they knew who I was. But you know what? They still offered that comfort. And that's what I needed the most. And I just felt that every day I woke up, I thanked God that, we were there. So that's how we prevailed. And I say we, because it wasn't just me, it was us together. And so that's about, I didn't suffer, I don't think, as a caregiver. Yes, did we change our life and traveling? Yes, I haven't been to Maine in 5 years, but we're going to go next year. So but Lewis, as most communities are, we're very close down here, and we're blessed with having good neighbors and friends. Probably didn't answer your question, but it's
no, it's good. No, it's fine. No, it's good, Wendell. Thank you. And Jean.
Yes, Wendell, an interesting story that you told, and it really resonated with me. I've had 2 friends, one who just died, who was diagnosed with cancer, but the symptoms never really came on with a vengeance until maybe 3 months ago. And one of the things, that we both came from home care, right? But her family didn't. And they didn't know what they were doing. And, I was like, yeah, she can stay home. She can do this at home. We can figure this out, but I need your help. I need to know you're committed. And they're like, we'll do whatever you suggest we do. We just need a navigator. And I've heard that from almost every single person that spoke today. Your navigator was your friend who stopped by at your porch.
True.
And that was the same thing, like outlining for me what I might expect, what I should be prepared for. And I think that help with anticipation for people is really important. And the other thing, what you say about, we were talking about the caregiver. So I have another friend just diagnosed with cancer last week, and it's terminal. And she and her sister are very, very close. And I noticed everyone's reaching out to the friend with cancer, but not her sister, who is, and I know she's going to wear out, so it's that support. We always, and our heart goes out to the person with cancer, but sometimes maybe we're, not on target as much for the needs of the caregiver and how important that is. And obviously you pay everything forward, you give it back. So just wanted to say that's really wonderful. And
Thank you. Well, one of the first things that after starting chemo was coming home and then everyone calling, your friends and neighbors calling, what can I do? What can I make meals? Can I do this? And I said, do me one favor. Just don't call my house phone, call my cell phone, because I don't want to wake Mike up because he slept a lot. But, and I can also say that even being retired, I was doing school safety inspections for the state of Maryland. And believe me, I had 24/7 contact, with direct line to Mike at all times. And he was unselfish. He said, no, go on and do your inspections. So he recognized that I needed that outlet too. And, but like I said, I never missed an appointment. And I think a message from anyone who has, and there's the other thing is our pastor has called many times to St. Peter's because there were other cases of bladder cancer. And unfortunately, it didn't end as like Mike's. And before I could get to go visit with them, they passed. And so, this is reaching out and just making it available to anyone. I just learned yesterday, volunteering at the hospital, that a neighbor of mine, their friend, I don't know who that is, but they said he was just diagnosed with bladder cancer. And yeah, I was busy and I feel so bad right now, but I'll let him know if they need to talk. I'll be more than happy to share whatever I can with someone else. And like I said, that's been my life of giving is just taking care of everybody and those I can take care of. And it's happened in my family. I have a brother who's going to be operated on next week with renal cancer. And so, it's this cancer doesn't stop. I mean, it's terrible, but trying to maintain good health yourself, and knock on wood, thank God we're both in good health now, even though he has the appliance that limited us at swimming in the ocean maybe, or doing a few things. But you know what? You can forgive all that. It's okay. And so we live a perfectly normal life, and 43 years.
Wonderful. Thank you, Wendell. And thank you, Mr. Harris and Bianca, Amelia, and Mrs. Spencer and Mrs. Dash for your courage and speaking with us today and being willing to share. I have many, many takeaways from the stories and the experiences that were shared today that I know will come in very handy as we frame our work, continue to frame our work. So thank you.
Yes, very thankful, very thankful, very, very helpful to hear all this. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Will, can you move to the next slide? Okay, here we are at reports from subgroup co-chairs. Now I am cognizant of the time. We have 10 minutes. So the subgroups, and I'm just are up, and meeting dates have all been set for them. If there's anybody who has not received information about what subgroup that they are on, please contact Will and he will help you with that. Are there any questions right now about our subgroups?
Krista, I just wanted to say, given the excellent testimonies that we heard today, I look at this and I just see us so on top of the subgroups are really where the discussions need to be, from caregiver workforce solution to support services, combating that isolation. And I know that transportation will be included in this, but I just think these subgroups are going to really hit on the essence of the different stories that were so passionately shared with us earlier today.
Excellent point, Ruth. I almost love that, it's such a nice segue into our subgroup work. I think that it focuses us on the real life experiences that people are facing and sort of, so it really does, I think, put us in a very good place for getting ready for the subgroup work. And thank you for saying that. That's an excellent point. Any questions or comments about subgroups? Okay, well, we're looking forward to seeing the work that takes place in those groups. Will, the next slide, I think we're at public comment, if I'm not mistaken. If there is anybody who would like to offer public comment, please use the raise hand function on Zoom to indicate that you would like to make a statement, and we will call on you. And I'm gonna ask, I'm looking through the list now. It doesn't look like anyone has raised their hand, but I'm gonna defer to Will to see if I am missing anybody.
No, Representative, it does not appear that anybody has raised their hand.
Okay, very good. But there is an also option if somebody would like to add public comment, I believe they may do so by emailing information to caitlin.delcallo@delaware.gov, and that's Caitlin, CAITLIN.DELCOLLO@delaware.gov. Well, I deeply appreciate everyone's time today. We're ending 8 minutes early, which I think is okay. It's nice sometimes to have a little time. Is there anything else that any committee member would like to say? Other than have a wonderful weekend? No. Okay, well, thank you.
everyone. Good
Thank you.
weekend, everybody.
Have a
Thank you,
wonderful
everyone.
weekend. Thank you very much, and take care.